Walsh Hall lies about 1 mile outside of the village of Meriden in Warwickshire. In 1843, when Meriden was still a hamlet comprising of no more than 14 or so houses, Walsh Hall was the property and residence of the Earl of Arden, a soulless fellow much taken to an existence of drunkenness and debauchery. It is said that when the occupiers of the tied cottages thereabouts were unable to pay their rent, then the said rent was to be paid in kind, often, if a cottage had a young daughter in residence, in sexual gratuities normally of some perverted nature. In the employ of the Earl in 1843 was a young girl of about 15 or 16 years of age, whose name was Alice Devicies. Alice was an attractive young woman whose duties, in the absence of a butler at the hall during this period, included attending to the Earl's dressing and bathing. The lecherous Earl, when drunk, often took great pleasures in calling out the poor Alice from her slumbers to attend to his needs in the small hours of the morning. These gross, distasteful and unnatural acts of union between two such unmatched souls as these should only be left to the dark imaginations of those with a stomach to buttress the repulsion that they may envisage. But it is said that at daybreak after such encounters, the gardener often reported a gentle sobbing at Alice's window. By late August of that year, it had become more than clear to all that cast their eyes upon her that Alice was pregnant with the Earl's child. In fear of a scandal in the village, and even a revolt by his local employees, the Earl had decided to hide Alice away until the day that she gave birth, upon which she was, without demur, to dispose of the pitiful infant. No month is more unforgiving and callous than November. It is the month of the drowned dog. And it was in mid-November when Alice did eventually give birth, and with a heavy heart and blood still drying upon her flesh, took the newborn from the hall to the deep and remote Miller's Pond some 1 mile hence. At the pond, too tired to even weep, Alice bundled the child tightly in some old rags and tied a large rock with some rope to one of the child's limbs. With one enormous effort of will and courage, she threw both rock and infant into the black, muddy waters and stood, motionless, for at least an hour until twilight began to draw around the miserable setting. It is said that poor Alice visited Miller's Pond every day of her life, sitting simply in silence in some vain hope that her dead child would return from its waters. They buried poor Alice in the year of our Lord 1865, in the lonely cemetery beside Meriden Chapel on top of the hill overlooking Miller's Pond. Today, the tombstone is beaten, and its stone eaten away by decades of wind and wuthering. But on it, if one has the patience to inspect extremely carefully, is the inscription, "Here lies the poor woman Alice Devicies, once of Walsh Hall, housemaid and beloved mother."